What's up, guys? I got an absolutely different video today than you all are used to seeing. I'm not even sure if this is going to make it to YouTube or not, but I may put it on Facebook. I'm not really sure. I just wanted to document this for what the future holds for this project. So if you remember several weeks ago, myself, Don Scheib from Outside with Scheib, who I'm wearing his shirt today, and Darrin from Woodruff Woods, we all went up to the Iron Oak Sawmill up to Chuck and Deb's. And I'll link that video here at the top if this makes it to YouTube. But while we were there, we milled a great big walnut log that Darrin brought with him. Chuck was gracious enough to let us run the mill. We each got to cut a slab. And when it came time for me to cut my slab, Darrin looked at me and he said, "Hey, you cut it, you can keep it." So I ended up with this beautiful, nice, long black walnut slab. So coming up here in a few weeks, we're all going to see each other again at the Paul Bunyan show in Ohio. So I am going to go back in the past a little ways, back when I used to dabble in a little bit of woodworking and sign making. And I've decided that I'm going to take a chunk of this walnut slab that you see right here, and I'm going to make a sign for my buddy Darrin, my new friend Darrin that I met for the very first time there, but felt like we knew each other forever. So I'm just going to kind of document this sign making process. If anybody's interested in it, maybe it'll make it online somewhere. But anyway, here's the piece of the slab that I cut out. I kind of cut the sides out into a little bit rough, jagged edges so everything wasn't symmetrical. Seems how it's a rough sawn piece of lumber with the live edges still on it, kind of make it a little more rustic looking. But this is the slab that I'm going to use for Darrin's sign. I did get him to send me his logo, which I enlarged, and this is what's going to end up being transposed onto the sign. So the way that I'd always made these signs a few years ago when I used to dabble in this was I would freehand engrave it with a router. And it might sound like it's not going to turn out too well, but I'll throw some pictures in here so you can see some of the signs that I made in the past. I made a lot of camping signs that people put out in front of their campsites when they're camping, and a lot of home decor type signs. It was pretty lucrative there for a little while until CNC machines got really big and people started being able to make signs a lot quicker than I could for a lot less money. And so I still do them on occasion for friends and family. Darrin being a new friend of mine, I'm going to get the tools back out and make this sign. So I'm going to transpose this onto the slab here, and I'll let you take a look at it when I'm done. All right, so I think I got it all done here. Just making sure before I lift the tape off and it doesn't move that I haven't missed anything. That's why I always use blue ink or a different color than the black so I can kind of see what I've traced over. Looks pretty good, I think. So now you get to see as well. It's just a rough sketch of what it's going to look like. It's got that knot in the middle there. I tried to situate the logo on the board to where I would not be routing inside of that knot too much. Looks like I worked my way around it, but I did want to leave that in there just to give it some extra character. So the next step will be to set up the router and to start engraving. Everything that's black on the logo will be engraved, and everything that's white will be engraved around. So the name Woodruff Woods will actually be raised up and the natural color of the wood, and then everything that's black will be engraved and inked in. So you'll get to see that next. It's not going to be today, but it's going to be on this video here in just a second. All right, welcome back, everybody. It's been a few days since we laid this out and did the outline on here. but I've got a little bit of time this evening, so I'm going to try to get the outline done is my goal for tonight. At least get the outline done, maybe do some of the technical stuff in the middle with the lettering. You remember all the letters in Woodruff Woods are going to be outset. So the bottom letters, the Woods part, they're a little bit smaller, so it'll be a little more tedious and technical. So I'm going to try to get to that point tonight. As you know, this is going to be a gift to Darrin at Woodruff Woods that I'm going to give to him at the Paul Bunyan show, which is only a couple weeks away, so I got to get moving on this project. But one thing I did do off camera was I went ahead and chamfered the edge, just the sides. It's just a 45-degree chamfer on both sides of it. I think that looks a little bit better than the hard corner. So I did that off camera, but that's just a simple 45-degree chamfer bit in the router, and that's how I did that. But as far as the outline goes, I'm going to be using the profile bit. It's a sign-making bit in the router. It's pretty much like a pencil point. It gives you a nice, fine engraving that is easy to control. Just slow and steady, have a steady hand, follow your lines, and it seems to work really well. Once we get the outline done, we can move on to a different bit and start carving away at the bigger areas. But some of these tree limbs are going to be smaller and a little more technical, so I'm going to use the profile bit for the majority of that. So I'll go ahead and fire up the router and I'll start doing a little engraving. I'll zoom in a little closer so you can see what's happening. It might be upside down because I'm going to move the camera around to the other side of the table so the tripod's not in my way. But once you see what's going on, I'll speed it up, and when we get the outline done, I'll show you what it looks like. Kind of see what's going on here with the engraving. It's starting to show up a little better as I go through. But I'll try to bring the camera in on my side here and maybe zoom it into where you'll be able to see a little better. Oh man, the things I do for YouTube. The camera is actually between my legs right now. Give you a little view of how this carving goes. Alright, so that went a little quicker than expected. One thing I do want to point out to you here, I'll show you what we got. It's really popping out now, but it's going to look much better than that once we really get it done. But one thing you got to think about when you're doing this and really keep it in mind is what is outset at the end and what is inset. And what I mean by that is all of these letters are going to be the natural wood color when this is done. So when I'm tracing and cutting in these lines, I have to stay on the outside of my marks, and then what is going to be inset, which means what is all black, I stay on the inside of my lines. Now where that gets really tricky is some of these places like right here, these three little, that's not even a shape, but those three little squiggly things there in the middle, they are going to be the color of the wood because they are white on the photo and everything around it is black. So I keep the photo right here, and these three squiggly things are, as you can see, right above the R in Woodruff. So we'll reference the picture and we'll look right above the R in Woodruff, and you see these three little squiggly things, and they are white, so they have to be carved around so that when the finished product is done, everything that's white is the color of the wood. So I keep the picture nearby to reference that. I was a little concerned about these bottom letters since they were outset. They're going to be raised up. These smaller letters are a lot easier to carve when they're inset. You can get much more detail inset, but these were big enough to where it still worked. I think it's going to look really, really good. I was able to get around that knot, and all the outline work is done. I hope you're going to like this, Darrin. It's turning out really nice. I might change bits on the router now and do a little bit of carving on the inside. Try to get some of these smaller areas before we get to the larger area. So what I'm going to use now is it's an 1/8 inch straight flute bit. Let me see, how can you see this here? I don't know how focused that is for you, but that'll allow me to get into the really small areas and carve that out flat. So we'll swap that bit out right now and get carving. I use this Ryobi router because it was a cheap router. It's my second one I've had. Back when I was doing this on the side just as a hobby, I sold several signs, but I actually wore the bearings out of my other Ryobi router. But I enjoyed it so much and I got used to the feel of it. I really liked the way the handles are situated on it. It seemed easy to control, so I bought another one. I do have this Porter cable router. What I do with that is I just leave the chamfer bit in that all the time because I always chamfered my sign. So I would have that set up and that bit in there, and I just leave that in there. But I'll get the depth set here on this flute bit, and we'll get to going. Oh man, this is really going to turn out nice. I did not expect to get this far along tonight. I thought I was just going to get the outline done, but I got on a roll and I just kept going. I put that 1/8 inch flute bit in there thinking I was just going to clean up the outline, and then I just kept going. So the carving is completely done. I'm just brushing off some of the loose sawdust that's caught in the cracks here, and I'll give you a look. Now you saw me put get the red Sharpie out and start coloring on my sign here. Well, the red Sharpie was just to give me some guidance on what not to carve. Kind of like, stop, don't carve that. But there's a lot of those things in there, and I was starting to get a little confused as I was getting into the carving and kind of losing track of where I was on the sign. So I figured I might as well just stop, make some marks on the sign for myself so that I don't screw up. So pardon the red, that'll all be gone once we ink it in and sand everything off. But here we go. This is going to turn out really good, I think. Now this is all obviously freehand carved, so it's not perfect. The CNC machine didn't do this. This was done by hand. But you can kind of get a look at how deep the carving is. And once the black is in there and it's all sanded off and we can see the finished product, we'll put several coats of poly over it, but it's really going to be a lot of contrast and it's going to look really good. I'm excited for this. But I'm done for tonight. I'm starting to get a little tired. My eyes are starting to get a little blurry there. I had to stop and, refocus. So when you get tired, that's when mistakes happen, and I'm not going to allow that to happen. So I'm going to put it down for the night, and we'll pick back up on it maybe tomorrow, but you're going to see it right now. All right, so now we're back with what will be one of the final steps to complete this sign, and that's what I call inking in the black. It's not really ink that we're putting in, it's spray primer. So we'll put some black primer down here. We'll spray over the whole thing. I am going to mask off the live edge, and I'll mask off the sides so we don't get any overspray on any of that, because we want to keep that natural look of the wood. So I'll mask this off now, and then we'll spray it up. So what I use is just Rust-Oleum 2x Ultra Color flat black primer. Seems to work good. It's what I've always used, and I've never had a problem with it. I think you can probably use any primer you want, or any paint you want for that matter. The only thing you have to be careful of is that if you're doing pine or poplar signs, something with a little looser grain, whatever grain is open, the paint will get into. So this walnut will be pretty tight, so I think we'll be fine. So I normally do a light mist over from one direction, and then I'll come back over on the camera side and I'll hit it again from the other direction. That'll dry pretty quick because there's a nice breeze blowing through here today. We'll take the masking off and then sand it. All right, so this is my favorite part. We'll start with an 80 grit, then we'll go to a 150 grit. But when you start sanding the black off, and you can really see what the sign's going to look like, the black will stay where it's supposed to be, and we'll get back to natural wood color for what's supposed to be the wood color. So we'll start with the 80 grit. It'll take a little bit of time to get all the black off. Then we'll go over it with the 150, smooth it out a little bit, and we'll be ready for clear. All right, so now for my favorite part, we're going to blow this off. And we can see what we've got. Check that out. Pretty cool. Got a little bit of red left here from the Sharpie. I want to get off, just some light spots. So I'll go back over this. I want to sand this part down here that's still a little rough. Just clean it up a little bit and we'll be done. All right, I think we're going to call this good as far as the carving and the painting and the sanding goes. We'll get some clear coat on it now. I'll put that probably on time lapse. You don't really need to see me spraying clear coat. And then once the clear coat's all dried, I'll get you a look at the finished product. All right, so the sign is all done now. I finished it up last night, so the clear coat has a chance to dry overnight. I think I can pick it up now and show it to you. The clear coat really brought out the grain of the wood, and the contrast that you're going to see between the sapwood on the edges of the slab and the heartwood in the center is dramatic. So let me just show you right now. Here it is, the Woodruff Woods sign that he's going to be gifted at the Paul Bunyan show. See the contrast here? I mean, just the sapwood versus the heartwood. It just really looks good. I'm happy with how it turned out. Like I said earlier in the video, it's not perfect because it's not CNC computer driven and computer guided, but for doing that freehand and something that was made, you know, with a personal touch for a friend of mine now, I think he's really gonna enjoy that. I hope he has a good place to hang it up. You can see I've got the trailer loaded up and headed out for a delivery this evening. I got a delivery scheduled for 5 o'clock, so I'm gonna be getting over to that here shortly. But if you're interested in learning more about making the signs like you just saw in this video, obviously I didn't learn how to do that on my own. I watched a YouTube channel called Make a Wood Sign. So if you look up Make a Wood Sign on YouTube, that's where I got the idea, and that's where I learned how to do it. He's got instructional videos. He's a really good guy to show you how to do all that. And so if you have an interest, I'll link his channel up here at the top of the video as well. So fingers crossed, Darrin loves it, and you'll be able to see that, or you would have already saw that now on the Friday night live stream from the Paul Bunyan show. So at this point, the Paul Bunyan show is already over. Darrin has already received the sign, so now the video will come out. So thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it and have a great week.